dietitian or CNS in a state where it's almost impossible to credential with the insurance companies? Or are you a dietitian in a state where maybe a handful of networks are closed in your state, and you are wondering whether or not you can credential in an external state, so one different than your own, and whether or not that is legal or what the process looks like. So if that is you, then this video is for you. For those of you guys who don't know me, I am Amy Plano. I am the reimbursement dietitian, and I help dietitians get credentialed, build the shit out of insurance, and make the money they deserve. I have worked with thousands of dietitians, many of which are practicing in different states than the ones that they live in. With that being said, just like any type of relationship, that comes with a significant amount of baggage. So in today's video, I am going to walk you through 3 different pieces: the why and the who. So like, who needs to know this information, why it's important, and then what you need to do about it. So let's get to it. Okay, so why is this important and what does this scenario look like? So for many dietitians practicing in certain states or living in certain states, like if you're in Florida, right, we know that the networks are not amazing. If you're in Michigan, we know the networks are not amazing. What other states? We have states like Iowa, challenges with Blue Cross Blue Shield products. So what other states? New York, Blue Cross Blue Shield products. So if you're in a state where you are struggling with credentialing for a particular product, the question then becomes, because you are credentialing historically with a national product means that the product exists in every single state in the United States. So for example, Aetna, Cigna, obviously Medicare, that's a federal plan, United Healthcare, UMR, and then each state has its own Blue Cross Blue Shield product. So often before the pandemic, or I'm sorry, during the pandemic, we were able to credential in one state and then literally bill every state using telehealth parameters. So that kind of opened up a lot of dietitians practicing externally in other states. So now things are starting to change, number 1, with telehealth, and number 2, with the way in which the contracts are, which we're going to talk about in a second. So prior to the end of the pandemic, many dietitians were getting a physical address in another state and then credentialing through that state. And while we now need to be aware is that certain things are changing with contracts. And so if you were to credential in another state, here's a handful of things you need to be mindful of. Number 1, if you are going to credential in a different state, I would highly recommend you sit down with either your CPA and or attorney, because there are going to be legal and tax implications of doing business in another state. And what I mean by doing business in another state is that you, number 1, need to have a physical office location in the state in which you are going to credential in. And so if you do by any chance choose to use something like a relative's home, that home, historically speaking, needs to be ADA compliant. The insurance companies are probably going to see this address and they're going to run it through some type of system that they have. And if it is in a residential area, they may send you something to sign off on saying and confirming that it is ADA compliant. Okay, so that is something very important to be mindful of, right? Office space needs to be ADA compliant. So you need that office in the other state, and by doing so, you are now doing business in another state. So any income received on that contract is subjected to the state rules, regulations for that state. So things to keep in mind, right? So you may, you probably need to pay for an office space that's ADA compliant there, right? Your CAQH needs to reflect that office space. Any business licenses in that particular state or county, right? In certain counties, you may need additional licenses to do business. And then if that is a state that is a licensure, or even a state like Connecticut, we have certification. in order to participate with the insurance companies, you need certification through the Department of Health. And so there are a handful of things you will need to navigate when going across state lines. And the last piece, and this is probably the most important piece, I am recording this in December of 2024. As somebody who works with dietitians in every single state in the United States, aside from Puerto Rico, I don't have any clients in Puerto Rico, I can tell you that we are starting to see specific demographic riders in these contracts for practicing across state lines. So for example, certain insurance companies are defining the jurisdiction based on the physical location you gave them. So say I'm in Connecticut, but I want to secure an office in New Jersey for whatever reason. And so a lot of the contracts now, say in New Jersey, that I am reviewing or I have been told about, says the demographic or the scope of the location is in fact just New Jersey. And so obviously the question becomes, well, how does the insurance company know how and where people are located, right? That becomes an ethical question, not an Amy P question. And as I always say, by you signing off on your contract, you're saying you understand the rules, the regulations, the terms, and you are agreeing to them by signing off on that contract. So that's something new to be mindful of, because during the pandemic, obviously, nobody was in their office locations, and some people weren't even in the state in which they were practicing. So just to be very mindful. So who needs to worry about this information? Dietitians who are credentialing in states that are different from them. Why is this important? Well, when you credential in another state, a lot of times there's additional things you need to do, like securing a license, a physical location, paying any state and local taxes, as well as doing any business licenses in that state. And then, like I said, why is this important? This is important because not only do you need additional things, you then need to read your contract to make sure there are not specific demographic riders indicating where the patients need to be located. Once again, this is entirely different than licensure. This is not a licensure thing. This is a contract legally binding thing that you guys are signing off on. So I get a ton of questions on this topic, so I thought it would be helpful. Although there is not a definitive answer, I wanted to kind of provide you guys with a plan as well as what to kind of consider. Once again, just to drive the point home, always best and 100% recommended to consult with your CPA and then potentially an attorney, because you are doing business in a different state. In my experience, most solid CPAs can handle that very easily. You just have to give them your practice location and they will help you with all of those things. But if you love this video, definitely hit the subscribe button up or below, depending upon where you are watching, because I always do my best in these videos to answer questions I see that are very top of mind for you guys. So if you want to be the first one to know, because a lot of this information is ever changing, hit the subscribe button. And you will get a notification every single time a video like this launches. And then you guys will be privy to the most important information in the space of insurance. So once again, I'm Amy Plano, reimbursement dietitian, and I help dietitians and CNSs just like you get credentialed, build a shit out of insurance, and make the money you guys deserve. Peace.